President Adama Barrow, welcome to Hardtalk.
Thank you, Zainab.
You're new to politics. You came in straight at the top as president. People's expectations are extremely high after the years of fear and intimidation. Can you meet their expectations?
It's a very interesting question. People's expectations are very, very high after a long transition of 22 years of dictatorship. But one thing was important for the Gambian people to make the change. It was so psychological. We all thought that we cannot make the change. I think that was a big success for the Gambia. And we are really focused to make sure we make a difference for that country. It was difficult, but we are progressing.
I mean, you were the candidate for a united opposition. You won the presidential elections in 2016. President Yahya Jammeh first accepted the result, and then he said no, he wanted to remain in power. You had to go to neighbouring Senegal. You were inaugurated as president there. Then he finally went into exile in Equatorial Guinea. However, the fact of the matter is that around 40% of Gambians voted for him in that presidential election. You have got to win them over and govern as the president for all Gambians.
That is right. And we are focused on that. That's why we have opened a window of reconciliation. Because as president, that is part of your responsibility. And the Gambian people are very important here. You cannot succeed as a president without the support of the Gambian people, because you are the president for everybody. That's why it is important, and we have been working on that to make sure we bring in good laws so that the Gambian people will win their confidence, and that will open a window of reconciliation for everybody to be accommodated on board.
But you know, the party that supported Jammeh, the APRC, if you speak to party members, they complain that the democratic space has been crowded. They've been crowded out from it. They complain about, clashes between them and supporters of your party. We saw one very recently in Tallinding following local elections there. The police had to come in using tear gas and so on. And they talk about a climate of fear for themselves because they are seen as Jammeh supporters.
I think their leadership, they thought that Jammeh's leadership, Jammeh's rule will never finish. We took them by surprise, and now they are in the opposition. But because of those few problems here and there, now I have given orders to the security force that any big political party that is conducting campaign or whatever should be given security, and that have started.
But that's not really happening. I'll just give you one example. Ami Jaju, a supporter of former President Yahya Jammeh from Foni, which is one of the areas where he has a lot of support, she fears reprisals. She says, I can't leave my village because of my political affiliation. We are seeing the divisions in the Gambia, and you must be very, very keen to ensure that they don't get out of hand.
These are minor incidents. If you look at the political cycle, the National Assembly elections, in the past, it was in April, a lot of candidates contested the election. It was
You're talking about the local elections that took place? Just
local and National Assembly elections. If you look at the candidates who took part in that election, it's record in that country. It's unprecedented. It's because of the climate, it's because of the environment. And we create that environment, that people feel free and people feel safe that they can contest elections.
Is that the case? Because your Justice Minister, Badawi, has said we are dealing with a very fragile political situation.
Yeah, it's a fragile situation because of 22 years of dictatorship. The system was polluted. A lot of bad laws, dictatorship or whatever. And for 22 years, that make it very, very fragile. But we have a responsibility here to make sure we create the environment. But as of now, I think we are progressing in those areas.
There are reports that two of Jammeh's right-hand men slipped into the Gambia from the border of Senegal and that they've been arrested and detained. What's happened to them?
They came through the airport on notice. This was a security lapses. But as I tell you, it's a learning process for all. It will take us time. But they were arrested. Arrested in the sense that they disturbed the army without permission for about 1 year. That is a crime. That's why they were arrested.
And are they going to be charged? Because, I mean, you can't detain somebody.
They are already charged. They are already charged. They are going to court.
Mm-hmm.
The court martial. The process is on. But the process is a legal process, whereby the media and everybody, the public is part of it, to make sure the process is free and fair.
There are also reports of the junglers, the former Jammeh death squads, also slipping into the country. That must be something that's worrying you?
Really, I will not say that I'm worried, but I am concerned.
You're concerned?
I'm concerned, but it also is a learning process for us to make sure we improve at the security level.
So what are you exactly concerned about with reports of these death squads? And do you have any idea what number are we talking about? You're the Minister of Defence as well in your country.
The concern is we expect those people are well known. They cannot sleep in the country without being noticed. And if they are not noticed, it's some kind of a security threat.
The challenges in your country for you are both political and economic. We're looking at the political challenges here. Another example is the security you've just talked about, could be compromised. Reliable reports say that 80% of the army may still have some kind of loyalty to the former president, Yahya Jammeh.
That's an over-exaggeration. I don't think so.
But a good number.
A good number. But I think that trend is changing.
So you can't trust your own army?
I think I trust my army. But as I said, everything is a process, and we are going into process of educating our army, building their capacity, so that they will be professional, so that they will know what is their role as far as democracy is concerned. We want not the quantity, the quality. The quantity is not the most important thing, but quality. And in this, we are building an academy for the military. And I want them also to be accommodated in the military barracks, so that they play the role of defense force, not as police.
Another aspect that is worrying a lot of people you talk to, both in the Gambia and also in the diaspora, is that there may be incipient signs of tribalism in the Gambia. The former President Yahya Jammeh, Jollo, of course, threatened to bury the Mandinka majority tribe in the Gambia 9 feet deep. And that's another layer which is making people very, very restless, that perhaps they're seeing your government is trying to perhaps push the Mandinka over and above the Jollo, and that's going to cause a lot of trouble.
That have never been our focus, that have never been the way we think. We feel that the Gambian people are the same. The presidents can come and go, but the Gambia remains. And we feel that Gambia is not complete without all its ethnics. The Mandinka, the Jola, the Fula. Everybody should be part of that. You have a complete Gambia.
I'll give you an example of what one person has said. For instance, Aliyu Cisse, he's from the Campaign for Human Rights, Gambia, UK. He warns against democratic backsliding, is how he puts it.
These are just opinions, and they have right to their opinion. But I think Gambia is on the right track as far as democracy is concerned, because the participation, the number of participants in our democratic process is unprecedented.
So you've set up a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, for example, to look at the excesses of the Jammeh years. We saw dozens and dozens of people who'd disappeared, murdered. people who lost their livelihoods and so on. You have got to make sure that you bring justice to the people who need it without creating an atmosphere of a witch hunt against those who once supported or still support the Jami party.
That's why we are following a process. That's why we set up a commission of inquiries. The commission of inquiries will make sure to get the facts together and make recommendation to the president. Then that's the time we will decide what to do next. But we have a responsibility here. And that responsibility is we want to follow the due process to make sure every Gambian is accommodated. Every Gambian is given his dues.
Would you like to see former President Jami turn up before the International Criminal Court? After all, the prosecutor there is Fatou Bensouda, a former Gambian Minister of Justice herself. Have you spoken to her, for instance?
We will still wait for the report of the Commission of Inquiries. Then that will dictate what will be our next move. But the bottom line is we want to follow the due process. Anybody who is found wanting will face the full force of the law.
Have you asked President Obiang of Equatorial Guinea for Yahya Jammeh's extradition?
We haven't made any requests. We haven't asked for it as of now. We are still waiting to get the facts together.
You have said you want to make the Gambia a beacon for human rights in the whole of Africa. When you came to power about 15 months ago, you released all political prisoners. You said Jammeh was wrong. The Gambia shouldn't have left the ICC. We want to go back in there. And, you know, by and large, you've been applauded for your efforts. But there are some alarms that are being sounded, aren't there, about what is happening in the Gambia. And I want to give you one example of that. Dr. Ismaila Cisse, a lecturer in politics at the University of the Gambia. In January, he's arrested by the police, and he doesn't know why. He's detained, he's now been freed. And it was all because he wrote some things in the Gambian press which wasn't to your government's liking.
I was expecting this question.
Oh, there you are.
It's not a surprise.
Yes.
But one thing I want to make clear here. Dr. Ismaila Cisse and every other Gambian are all equal in front of the law. The police are there to do their job. If they feel anybody should be questioned by them, I think it is within their mandate. And in our Gambian laws, you can question anybody within 72 hours. And Ismaila Cisse was called for questioning. He wrote something in the newspapers that was about security.
I can tell you what he said. He said you lacked focus. He wrote subsequently that ECOWAS, that is the West African Security Force, which is partly protecting you, and it's there because, as we said, you can't quite trust your own army. He says these forces will not prevent long-term security risks if the president does not win the trust of the army. And that doesn't sound like a police matter. That sounds like something the government, your government, you perhaps didn't like.
I don't dictate what the police does. The police feel that they should question him and get more information about the issues he is talking about. I think it was within the mandate of the police.
Were they acting on anybody's orders, your orders?
They were not acting in anybody's orders. I will never order the police to go and arrest anybody. There are a lot of people who criticize me, people go and insult me, people do a lot of things. I've never ordered anybody's arrest.
He says he's baffled as to why he was arrested.
In this country, as I said, we believe in the principle of rule of law. If you feel that the police were wrong in what they were doing, in their duties or whatever, I think the courts were there for him to take the police to court.
Well, the Media Foundation for West Africa has condemned his arrest and detention and says, "We wish to remind President Barrow of the immense contribution of the media and activists such as Dr. Cisse in ensuring the end of 22 years of dictatorship in the country. We urge the President to ensure that freedom of expression is protected, promoted and fulfilled in the Gambia." Will you do that?
Everybody contributed towards this change. Everybody contributed. I was part of that. And not only contributing during the 2016 elections, but I was throughout part of the opposition to make this change. So there is nobody in that country who wants Gambia to succeed more than me, because I'm the principal.
Because you know
I believe in those principles. It's based on those principles that I was elected in office. I will not compromise the rule of law.
You've said that your government is going to, make the laws compatible with the values of the Commonwealth. Another issue that is also concerning a lot of people, particularly about African nations, is the issue of LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people. You've got a very, very tough law in the Gambia, up to 14 years punishment for people who are found guilty of engaging in gay sex. Is this something that you will reform, and soon?
The most important thing here is it was a very easy decision for me and my government to be admitted in the Commonwealth and the ICC. For simple reason, these institutions advocate for good governance. They advocate for rule of law, respect for human rights. That's why it was easy for us to join. And now we have a process that we want a complete overhaul of our constitution to make sure we have good laws that will accommodate everybody, every Gambian.
How soon can Gambians see a new constitution with these good laws you talk about?
Our target is about 18 months to 2 years. We will have good laws that every Gambian will be part of. There will be consultation countrywide, and we come up with a document that will suit everybody.
So they're the political challenges, but you've also got immense economic challenges. You have said your government's top priority is youth unemployment. About 65% of Gambia's population is under 30. Youth unemployment is more than 40%. You have to provide some kind of jobs, some kind of future for these very frustrated youth. What are you going to do for them?
All countries that have succeeded in these areas believe in the principles of democracy. We want to continue on that trend. And because of the democratic process in that country, there are a lot of people who have confidence in that country and want to invest in those countries. And believe me, it's the private sector that can create jobs. And a lot of companies are registering in that country, and that will help in job creation. If you look at the tourism industry,
the tourism industry,
industry contribute about 20 to 25% of our GDP. It used to be 6 monthly. Now we have turned it to yearly. It has increased employment.
So you want to boost tourism as a way of creating jobs, for instance?
We want to boost tourism. As of now, if you look at the numbers, we are getting about, this year, about 250,000 tourists in our country. Our target is up to 1 million tourists a year.
But you've got to do this very quickly, because per capita, Gambia, small population of 2 million, however, provides more migrants, irregular migrants to Europe than any other country in Africa. They risk their lives because they feel they've no future in their country.
I think that trend have changed. It have dropped drastically now, because people are starting to believe the system. And I think that is helping in that area, because they lost confidence because of the dictatorship and everything. Now the change have happened, and I think that trend is changing. I think this is very, very important.
But you're in a dire state. I mean, when you came to power, you said, we inherited an economy that was virtually empty. Debt accounts for about 120% of your GDP. Every household in Gambia owes about $4,500. You've got no money to do any of these things. The frustration is just going to build and build.
Yes, that's why we are able to work very hard to take it as a priority, to make sure we are less than 1 month import cover. Today we are 4 months import cover. And we have started creating jobs. Borrowing have dropped down drastically. Interest rates have gone down. Banks are lending now. I think in those areas we are progressing in those areas.
You've got a national development plan to run through till 2021, which is when the next elections are due. But people are saying, what kind of plan have you got? The Standard Gambia newspaper asks about agriculture. Mr. President, our government buying farmers peanuts with outside help is not any plan to revitalise our agriculture. Nearly 3/4 of your people depend on agriculture for their livelihood. There's no investment in that. There's no mechanisation. There are no fertilisers, seeds. You've got no plan.
After 22 years of dictatorship, things cannot change overnight. It cannot happen one day. It's a process. We have to follow this process. We believe that it's a challenge, and we have to mechanize. And in that mechanization, I think we are contacting a lot of countries, especially China. Some of their technical people are coming to the Gambia because we need two things: knowledge and money to partner to improve the agricultural sector. We have the land.
But when you pursue your plans and so on, I mean, there's also a danger, isn't there, that you want to build so quickly that things get out of hand. And I look at tourism, and you've mentioned how tourism is booming now in the Gambia, but one terrible side effect of the tourism business in the Gambia is exploitation, sexual exploitation of children by tourists coming into the country. In your country, there are posters saying zero tolerance of child sexual exploitation, but you know it goes on. Mr. President, you have to make every effort to ensure that your children are protected.
We are doing a lot of efforts. In doing these efforts, we have to enlighten our people. We have to educate our people. And the security, the tourism sector also. I think this year, the security in the tourism sector is a different thing completely. And the people who we are partnering in the tourism sector are also part of these reforms to make sure we have good tourists in that country. And also we want to go in for quality
and
tourism.
Protect your children.
Of course, protect our children.
When you came to office, it was understood that you were only going to serve 3 years of your term in a memorandum of understanding, although it's a 5-year term. Are you going to stay in power for 5 years, and will you contest the next elections? Briefly and finally.
As you said, we came together to agree on 3 years. The mandate is 5 years. People voted for 5 years.
So you'll stay in power for 5 years?
This was the Gambian people's decision for us to come together. I think still it's the decision of the Gambian people to decide whether it will be 3 years or 5 years. But legally, I have a mandate of 5 years.
So, having been a businessman, new to politics and coming in at the top, you like where you are, you want to stay where you are, you're going to run for another term then in 2021?
I've always said it's not the best job, but I'm given a responsibility because people trusted me within a short period to make a change. It's not easy, but it's not the period that you stay in power, what you are able to do for your people. That is what is important. My legacy is more important to me than staying into power. But it's the Gambian people, ultimately, it's their responsibility to make the decision.
President Adama Barrow of the Gambia, thank you very much indeed for coming on Hard Talk.
It's a great pleasure, Zainab. You are most welcome.